She graduated in 1961 with a diploma in theology and teaching. She then went on to study a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Studies and a Master's in Curriculum and Instruction. She is this year's citation recipient for the class of 1961, Iris Landa. Thank you for taking a moment and having a chat with me, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I am greatly honoured.
Now, we want to have a chat to you about what life's been like since Avondale and what you've been up to. So we'll just keep it easy to start with. You are living a long way from Avondale, so tell us where you are at the moment.
Right now, I am sitting in my home in Riverside, California.
And how long have you been there?
50 years this year. We came from Nashville, Tennessee, where my husband was studying at Vanderbilt, and I was a sixth grade teacher there. And we traveled across the country to La Sierra, where my husband had an invitation to be a professor here at La Sierra University. At that point, it was Loma Linda University, La Sierra campus.
Let's go back a little bit further. How did you come to live your life in America?
Well, it's an interesting story because when I was at Avondale College, I did meet some amazing people, and one of them was Paul Landa. And I had a job in the library in the afternoons, and he was an avid reader, a great researcher, and particularly with Desmond Ford, making sure they did all kinds of research. And he would come to my desk with a stack of books this high, and I would sign his name. I said, "It's okay, I'll take care of it." So he would go and I would sign his name on all the cards. And so we knew each other. But it wasn't until we were down in Melbourne in 1962. I was teaching at the Hawthorne Adventist School, 7th and 8th grade, and teaching sewing. And he was teaching at Williamstown. His parents were living in Melbourne at the time, and he was at the public high school there. And he called me up 2 or 3 months later and invited me out to go to a concert, which I did. And not thinking anything of it because I knew he was going off to America. I knew that, to do his doctorate, because there was nowhere in Australia for him to do a church history degree. And the people at the office at the school kind of, And I said, no, he's leaving for America. I'm his friend. I knew him at Avondale. But then it got more serious. And 2 years after we left Avondale, we were married. And then a year and a half later, we were able to get the green cards and then come
fabulous.
To the US. But the main idea was for him to study. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you've stayed there ever since.
And we've been there ever since. Yes. Yes.
So let's stay back sort of in that time zone and time frame of you being at Avondale. And often people talk about the Avondale experience, but what is it that you got from your Avondale experience?
It was the Christian experience. I wanted a Christian education. I had a full scholarship to go to the public college in Melbourne, but in my heart and soul, I really wanted a Christian education.
Well, you've always been in the education sector since leaving Avondale, and particularly the first decade in the classroom. You then moved into tertiary level. What were some of the outstanding aspects of actually being in education for you?
The amazing way that I could connect with students. When I was in Nashville, I taught sixth grade, and I'm still getting messages from some of my students saying, "You were the best teacher ever." And this goes back more than 50 years, okay? And you don't always know how you're impacting students, the parents, the society, but I loved what I did. I always wanted to be a teacher. And then when I came to La Sierra, I wanted to finish my degree, so a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree. And following that, I thought I would do a doctorate and teach teachers in the School of Education. But I was offered this job in student life to direct academic advising. And I thought, yeah, I'll take it for a year. But God had other plans. God had other. I loved working with college students, and I loved the work that I was doing with academic advising and connecting with the university right across the board, and creating brand new programs for the university in terms of academic advising. And as one professor said, when Iris Landa came on board, all of a sudden things started happening. And I didn't know that. You just get snippets here and there. And I love the fact that I could help change lives, see lives changed, and young people who didn't know where they were going, and I could direct them and help them into programs. And I had boxes and boxes and boxes of letters of thanks, and yet you don't realize on a deep personal level what it meant to them. But I was so privileged and so grateful for this position that I just loved.
And I can see the joy is there still on your face as you talk about it, which is really lovely. But I know you've moved into a different sort of area but you're still creating joy for others, and no doubt for yourself. You've started something called Happy Rooms around the world. Tell us what Happy Rooms are and how it all came about.
Okay, I'm sitting in the Happy Room right now, and this is where it all began. In 1997, my husband died of cancer, and I was devastated and in a very dark place. And no family here, all my family in Australia. But 3 years later, I had moved in a position where I felt I could change this room. Paul's had a lot of books. The walls were covered with books, even though we had a big library at the office. All of his things, and it was a brown room. And I'm not a brown person. And I decided that it was time for me to make this room my own. So our friends came and we took everything out, just everything. And I said, okay, I will start from scratch. And I put all kinds of colored wood paint chips all over my dining table, and I kept looking all over them. And finally I came up with yellow, orange, and lime green. Okay, so I don't know if you can see. Yeah, that's a lime green. I will move around because that's my favorite color. And some friends said, oh, that's a little bit weird, isn't it? Or too bright. And I said, no, this is just fine. And the amazing thing is I'm a creative person, and it was just like I had burst in creativity. And because I was working full time, not doing very well, it took me a year. But that was on weekends when I would do some, and I would reflect and do more and keep thinking. And then it took me a year. But the exciting thing is that was healing for me. So healing to create. And I thought it was all just for me. And my friends would come. And I remember one of my students, little girls, came, and she was nonverbal. And she sat here in my happy room and just bounced around and looked at the colors, never said a word. But the therapist she was going to said the next week, all she could talk about were the colors in my happy room. And the therapist said, I'm going to put happy colors in my office. And all of a sudden, children that wouldn't speak started talking and coming in. And so those were little side effects. And I enjoyed having my friends here, and I loved this space. I still do. And I wouldn't change anything. But God had other plans, totally other plans. And when I retired in 2007, I said, I think that I'm ready to do happy rooms in different places. And one of my students was in India. She worked for me the last year, and she was a student missionary in Nebakandam in southern India. And I said, I'll come. And I went there, and the last weekend we changed that big, sad dining hall, study hall for these children. I mean, it was a disaster. And everyone came out Saturday night and all day Sunday, and we changed that whole space into a happy room. And it was the beginning. And I realized, okay, this has totally changed this environment, the enthusiasm, and they wanted to do more and continue. And I knew then that God had plans for me to create happy rooms. I didn't know when, where, why, or how. That wasn't in my thinking. But God had plans. And the plans of Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. And I kept claiming that promise.
What are some of the more interesting responses you've received from the local communities you've been colouring?
And let me just go to China, because that was a very significant place. When I was in Jiangxi province, and it's one of the poorest provinces, and we painted at a little school, and I had 4 art teachers from that whole area. They wanted to learn how to do it. And so they came. They were wonderful. And I worked with the communist government officials there, and lots of laughter and celebration with them. They were so kind, so helpful. And at the last celebration, Iris, you have planted a seed, and the seed will grow into a great big tree that will spread its branches right across China. And before I had left China, that had already happened.
Yeah, it is definitely the gift that continues to give, and you continue to transform lives. I mean, you've served in education with such genuine care, and you are changing the world, one colourful room at a time. And for those reasons, the class of 1961 is honouring you this weekend at Homecoming. Congratulations.
I am greatly honoured. Thank you.
And for those who are watching, there is more to Iris's story. So please jump onto our social media platforms, our Facebook, our website and blog, and you can read her citation there or give her a shout out and say hi.